AskReddit by 482,736. 911 operator, what is a call that got you the chills? Occurred about 2 weeks ago. Get a pretty standard non-urgent difficulty breathing call for meds. Get unit started, no problems. Last thing I tell her is to unlock her front door and come back to the phone. She had corded landline. She gets up and just never comes back. I just get an open line. Can hear some shuffling in the background, nothing distressing. Honestly just thought she put the phone down and forgot about it, but we are supposed to stay on the line until confirmation of everything, so I didn't hang up. When the fire department gets there, they inform she had died home alone while on the phone with me. She basically dropped dead immediately after unlocking the front door. I was shocked and had to go back and re-listen to the call, knowing that woman was dying for a good 2-3 minutes and no one could save her. I hope you're okay after that one. 8-year-old hanged himself. How the fuck does an 8-year-old become suicidal? Jesus Christ. Not really the chills, but this stuck with me because it'd just be such a weird story this guy has for life. Guy called in the morning after going onto his balcony with his morning coffee and he's greeted by a severed arm. Just the arm, nothing else. Turns out someone had jumped from a much higher floor than his, smacked his arm on the railing on the way down, and the impact took it clean off. The remains of the body had already been cleaned up on the ground by the time this guy called, and he had just slept through it all. Officers attending, be advised that the caller is armed. We get a call at like 7 AM from a male who sounded very out of it. He kept saying that his wife was hurt, but we couldn't get much else out of him at first. After some back and forth, we found out that he had got in a fight with her the previous day, like 8-10 hours earlier, and hit her repeatedly with one of those meat tenderizer mallets. Then he decided that he couldn't live with it and attempted to cut his own throat. He couldn't follow through with that, so he slit his wrists. He had lost enough blood to go into shock, but not die, and called us when he came to. When responders got on scene, the wife was still alive, though obviously in some seriously rough shape. She was transported, though I'm not sure if she made it or not. A similar story to this actually just happened in my town. A man got into an argument with his wife, hit her with a dumbbell killing her, slit his wrists and then tried to slit his throat. Panicked and called 911. Told them that him and his wife needed an ambulance, knowing full well that she was dead. I live in a small rural town that never has anything like that happen, so when it does, it sticks with you a bit. It was a year ago. A father called 911 stating his 2-year-old daughter wasn't breathing. I had tried to instruct him on how to do CPR while I got the ambulance out there. He kept refusing and telling me he didn't know how, besides me insisting I would help him do it. He told me that his daughter had fallen down the stairs 2 days before the call and that he didn't know what was happening. The mother was screaming in the background. I started to get nervous due to the fact that it was 2 minutes into the call begging this man to do CPR on his baby. He gave the phone to what I'm assuming is the sister of the mother, and I gave her instructions on how to attempt to revive this little baby girl. I told the officers something was going on with this and I didn't feel right about it, and they get there and I never knew anything until the news a few weeks later. The father and grandmother were arrested for murder on this little baby. She passed away due to consistent abuse by the father when the mom was gone or at work. I never forgot that call. Excellent call on your part. What a tragic end to horrific life for this baby. Wife just shot herself in the head. Husband wasn't sure if she was beyond help, so I have him start CPR. At this point, I'm assuming she's gone, but I want to give him something to do and be able to look back and feel like he did everything he could have. While pumping on her chest, the kid who was about 10 walks in. He starts trying to have a kid help, so I tell the kid to grab a towel and apply pressure to the wound. I'm telling a child to hold pressure on his mom's self-inflicted gunshot to her head while coaching the father through CPR. The kid was super focused. Dad was about to lose it multiple times. When medics arrived, she was viable. They transported her. I just assume she didn't make it, but there's always a chance. We rarely get closure. As a first responder, we suck at letting our dispatchers know the outcome. You get what we give on the radio and we continue about our business until we complete the call. If you know your first responders, just send them a message and ask. I try my best to incorporate the dispatchers so they can get that closure too. Thanks for what you do. You are literally our lifeline and we couldn't do it without you. Guy who had just shot his friend with a crossbow because his friend said he could dodge a magic missile in D&D. The guy was laughing about it up until the point when the cops came and arrested him. Well, magic missile never misses. My aunt was a 911 dispatcher for a couple months and she told me about these 2 calls she had. This little boy around 6 or 7 was bawling on the phone because his big brother had shot himself in the head and his face and brains were everywhere. The other one is that this little girl, I think was 3, had called because her stepdad was beating the shit out of the mom, and my aunt said that you could hear the mom screaming in the background, and so after a while the dad came in and beat the shit out of the girl for calling the police, and so my aunt had to hear this 3-year-old little girl getting the shit beat out of her while her mom was trying to stop the stepdad. Did she find out what happened to them afterwards? I used to like reading about 911 calls or hearing 911 calls until I had to call 911 myself. My 2-week-old son stopped breathing at my home and my husband and I gave him CPR before the ambulance arrived. Neither of us knew infant CPR, but our adrenaline just kicked on and we made it happen. We revived him and he is now a healthy 7-month-old. He was having febrile seizure and we spent 9 days in the NICU. EMT here. When you're in this profession long enough, these people that are experiencing the worst moments of their life just become a job to you. Like, yeah, there's some person dying in the back of my ambulance, but I'm also thinking what I'm gonna eat for dinner later or my plans for tonight. I find that kinda chilling. As for something that stuck with me, it's this sick obese lady who was also a hoarder and had a ton of animals in her house. We picked her up from a hospital and had to transport her to a disabled hole cause she can no longer take care of herself even if she's still all there mentally. When we got to her room, it was no bigger than a cheap motel and she began crying. It was this kind of cry where she had the realization that she no longer has control of her life and that she'll rot away in this small room until she dies. You never really think about the emotions that people go through in situations like that, and my heart broke for her. Something sad that crossed my mind is how she probably got that way from dealing with trauma. A lot of people who end up in those extreme situations are victims of something. I don't want to assume anything about a stranger, but I wish life had been better for her. Dad accidentally ran his kid over with the car. That is one of the worst. If I ever see it in the news, it is just horribly heartbreaking. There is a website, kidsandcars.org I think, that has collections of first-person accounts of these tragedies and near misses, including accidental hot car deaths, run-overs, and other car-related dangers. But you see not only the tragedy but also the courage of those who keep living. Reading that site helped me to be much more aware of certain things that I would never have thought much about, like making sure the car trunk can open from the inside and making sure the kids know to never play hide and seek in a car trunk. And there is very useful practical advice as well, like always keeping your purse, or a shoe, with the car seat in the back, so you will always see the car seat when exiting the vehicle. The hot car deaths often follow very similar patterns. Worked on 999 as an ACT, Ambulance Service UK. The call that stuck with me was a mother of an 8-week-old baby. The baby wasn't breathing properly, and once the mother got close enough to the baby for me to hear agonal breathing, my stack dropped. She was apocalyptically upset but didn't realize just how severe the situation was. I never heard from the crew if the baby survived, but I don't expect it to have.